Hey, it's Brian Aganad here. Today I want to talk about the 3 phases of a press handstand, okay? And so you can see the board up here. I want to walk you through each of them so that you can clearly see how your press handstand is divided up and so that you don't experience overwhelm when you're trying to do it and then get stuck and never get it, okay? So phase number 1, which is probably the most important phase of a press handstand. Phase 1, and this is what it is. It's simply shifting so that you're coming up from the top of your foot up onto the toes, right? So it's a shift forward and then up. And the reason that that is so important is because it allows the hips to go into a right place. And I know it's probably hard for you to see here, but the hips are slightly over the wrist, right? So they go up and forward. And so phase 1 guarantees that you'll be able to get your hips in the right place. Does that make sense? And so another thing too, a common mistake that students make is they're overly focused on just trying to get off the ground and get up. And so it's what I call the typical flat-footed takeoff, where you go from here and then without even coming up onto the toes, there. What happens is that the shoulders come way too far forward and then the whole thing collapses, right? You don't actually get the up. Right? So phase 1 is super important. Like, this is the thing. If you don't have the control to shift and come up onto the toes, then you definitely don't have the control to go all the way up. So don't underestimate phase 1. Now, phase number 2 is what I say the most difficult part, is coming from up onto the toes to a pike, right? So it's just to pike. That is the most difficult part, and the reason why is it's the most strength intensive, right? It takes the most strength to be able to get yourself up to pike, right? And if any of you are, engineers or physicists, kind of like I am, I'm a nerd at these kind of things. Anyhow, torque is at its maximum when, the arm or the lever is at 90 degrees. So this right here is the most difficult part, right? So phase 2 is the most strength intensive. Now phase 3 is from pike up to handstand. Right, so here is, let me give you some good news, is that you can start to work on this. The reason I'm showing you these phases is because you can work on your press handstand essentially in phases. And, never mind number 2 for now, work on 1 and 3, which is why. So even if you're working, let's say you haven't got your handstand yet, right? You can do this while working on your handstand, right? So you can still work on the shifting in phase 1. But now let's say you do have your handstand, right? And you're trying to figure out, how do I bridge the gap between a whole handstand and then a press handstand, right? How do I do it? How do I bridge that gap? So what you do is, after you get it, I highly, highly, highly encourage you to start focusing on trying to jump to pike up to handstand. Does that make sense? So again, let me say that again. You want to go up from pike to handstand, because what that is you can develop the control to do that. Effectively, what's happening is you're learning, phase 3 of a handstand, right? Isn't that cool? So, look, phase 1, you work on shifting up onto the toes. The importance of it is, look, doing this gets the hips in the right place, okay? And then phase 3, you can work on while you're doing your handstand. So, pike up to handstand, okay? And so that's basically a bridge, right? That creates a bridge between your press handstand practice. And so what'll happen is, in addition to whatever you're doing, whatever the rest of your practice routine, the core strength building routine you're doing, I've got tons of free sequences on those that you can do, you'll start to build the strength to get phase 2. So that's the cool thing, is that don't feel discouraged if you can't get yourself up off the ground immediately. Don't think of press handstand as this one big lift, whoosh, up. Think of it in phases, right? That's the most important thing about a press handstand, is that it can be done in phases and you can hammer it out piece by piece. Okay, so I've given you tons of stuff here to get going. I'm looking forward to seeing you get your press. I'll talk to you soon.